All right, time to wrap up day 2 of our UFC 246 coverage from right here in Las Vegas. And by the way, look at this scene that we have here behind us. This is an incredible set. Dare I say, one of the greatest sets that we've ever done any of these YouTube recap or preview shows. Anyhow, I'm Ariel Helwani. That's Marc Raimondi, Okamoto of ESPN. Day 2 in the books. It was an interesting day, guys. Main attraction, of course, the media day, and a little twist at the beginning of the day that we don't usually see. First things first, we had Jorge Masvidal holding court, and then we had the UFC welterweight champion Kamaru Usman, both not scheduled to fight on Saturday, both with no upcoming fights scheduled, and they just met with the press, and then it was the 246 media day. So let's start with that. What were your biggest takeaways from both Masvidal and Usman today?
First, I thought it was a really good idea they did that because in some ways, Usman and Masvidal are kind of tied to Conor McGregor, maybe even Cowboy Cerrone in the future. McGregor has kind of expressed interest in fighting either one of those guys, Masvidal especially, so I thought it was good to at least have them and let them hold court, let them say what they had to say about the fight and whatever else is going on. Masvidal debuted his new mezcal. I still can't pronounce the actual name of it, but I'm working on it.
Gave it a shot.
I gave it a shot. It wasn't my best effort, but yeah, I mean, Masvidal I thought was very interesting. He's reiterated that he still wants to fight Conor McGregor over Usman for the title. He would rather fight the big money fight against McGregor than fight for the actual UFC gold, which I thought, and I continue to think it's still pretty interesting.
Yeah, and I would expect him to say that. I mean, he's made it clear that he wants money fights, right? And there's not a bigger money fight in MMA than Conor McGregor. But I also got to say, I kind of felt like Jorge was starting to lay the groundwork for a fight against Kamaru Usman. I mean, certainly he did say, I would like to fight Conor, and that's where the money is. But he also said, hey, if the money was the same either way, I hate Usman. I'll break his face. And you know, his coaches are guys that went through AT&T and graduated through our system. They're telling him not to fight me. I thought those were fighting words that he was throwing out to Kamaru Usman. And meanwhile, I think Usman is just relishing this new role that he's in, where he doesn't have to ask for fights. Right. The guy was throughout his entire UFC career, he felt like people were dodging him, and now he's got the belt, so he knows people come to him. Both of these guys would love to fight Conor McGregor, but I think, and this is just me speculating, but I think that they both are aware that it's very, very likely they fight each other next.
Quick follow-up. Do you get the impression if Conor loses on Saturday, that's the obvious fight? If he wins, now we're talking about a potential Masvidal versus Conor fight or an Usman versus Conor fight?
Yeah, I think it's obvious either way, honestly. I mean, that's the welterweight championship fight is Jorge and Kamaru. But there's always that big bomb out there that what is Conor going to say after the fight? And if Conor says, hey, I want Masvidal, I want the BMF title, or I want Usman because I want to be a three-weight champion, it throws everything in it. So that's why you don't see much posturing, I think, from anybody right now, because we're all waiting to see what happens in that fight and what Conor says after it.
It's interesting what you said, sorry, Ariel, about Usman now being the guy to kind of hold court and say, you come to me. But really, it's kind of the same thing, right? Because there's a top contender in Masvidal who's still saying, I don't want to fight Usman next, I want to fight McGregor. So even though he is the champion now and he should be that guy to take his pick, he still has the number one contender saying, I don't want to fight you
but it's the McGregor wild card. Well, the McGregor wild card trumps all.
Across 3 divisions and potentially, right?
Exactly.
You mentioned Masvidal breaking some news about this new alcohol business that he's a part of, but Usman broke his own news. Pardon the pun. He actually showed up with a cast, which I didn't think a lot of people knew about. What was the status of the injury? What did he say?
So apparently he injured his left thumb in the fight against Covington last month here in Vegas, and he said he doesn't know exactly what it is, and he's going to be in the cast for a little bit longer and doesn't really have a timetable for his return. But yeah, that was a little bit unexpected. I don't think anyone really knew that he had any kind of injury like that coming out of that fight.
Yeah, so if you were a betting man, we are here in the betting capital of the world.
I'm a betting man. You're talking to a betting man.
Okay, fair enough. I didn't want to put you on blast, but all right. Usman's next title defense, who's it against?
Masvidal.
You think so?
I do.
Regardless of what happens on Saturday?
Yeah, again, if Conor goes out there and says he wants the welterweight championship, it'll be Conor. Not 100%, but it certainly is possible. But yes, I'm a betting man. Jorge is the absolute favorite.
And we spoke about this yesterday. If Conor wins quickly, perhaps a quick turnaround in March. Interesting to note, Masvidal said April's better for him, so maybe he's not involved in those talks. Of course, he has to win quickly for that to even be a thing. Now let's talk about the actual media day. So those two held court, then they left, and then the fighters who are competing on Saturday showed up. Any big takeaways?
Nothing huge from media day, but as Masvidal was leaving, he was confronted by a roving reporter, not an actual reporter. It was, of course, UFC prospect Chase Hooper, who asked Masvidal about knocking out his father, Ben Askren. Of course, Chase Hooper and Ben Askren are not actually related, but that's kind of been like a running meme that's been going on social media. It is a very good meme.
Masvidal believed him.
For a second, Masvidal believed him.
Like he's like, wait, that's really
and
your
then,
dad?
No.
And then,
yes. Yeah, it was amazing. He actually believed him.
He did.
No
and
kidding.
then Hooper actually had to say, like, no, he's not really my dad. And then I talked with Chase a little bit after that. He said, just for the meme. So, but I was like, you have to kind of go along with it. You got to keep kayfabe, right? You can't break kayfabe.
No, absolutely.
You should have just deadpan, like, yeah, that's my dad that you knocked out in 5 seconds.
It's great. It's great.
You know, they've done a great job of building up Chase Hooper, sending out these M&Ms with his face, putting him in positions like this.
That's right.
So it was fun to see. Yesterday we had Ocho Cinco as a roving reporter, the former NFL great. Now we have Chase Hooper. Anything stick out for you?
Yeah, you know, I was talking a little bit to Holly Holmes' team, and one thing that her manager mentioned to me was that, you know, back in 2015 when she came into the UFC, you know, she came in and she was this boxing champion, and people were looking at her as obviously, when is she going to fight Ronda Rousey? Those are the terms that she came into the UFC under. And the UFC was very open to anything that she wanted to do. Hey, who do you want as a first opponent? And they threw out some names, and at the top of the list was Raquel Pennington. They just felt like she matched up well with her. And then, of course, we remember that fight was very close. Can you imagine if Holm would have lost her debut? And I just thought it was interesting that Pennington was, you know, the one that they picked right off the bat, and now here we are years later after that close fight.
Yeah.
Pennington is going to have another shot against her. Also talked to Saif Saad, who, you know, coach of Diego Ferreira. I was excited about that fight, but you guys know how Saad is. He finds a way to get you even more excited about it. He was talking about Ferreira. Hey, he's got, you know, we set a goal at the beginning of 2019 that he be ranked. And now here he is coming into 2020, getting a chance against Anthony Pettis. And he says that even if he beats Pettis, he knows that he's going to have one of those long Tony Ferguson-like winning streaks. And that's what he's prepared to do in 2020, is to just continue to stay busy, fight anybody the UFC puts in front of him, and get to that point where he's got 8-9 wins and he has to get a title shot.
Yeah, Diego has won 5 in a row. That's the longest winning streak on this card. Can I just say the highlight for me, Maurice Green, who I'd never met before, never talked to before, wearing a Canadian tuxedo, unintentionally, that's denim on top, denim on the bottom, but learning that his nickname is the Crochet Boss. He loves to crochet. Now, I didn't know what crocheting was, but it's a form of knitting, but don't call it knitting because it has a hook as opposed to a needle. He explained the whole thing to me. He loves to crochet. He's big into this.
So wait, is crocheting more badass than knitting?
According to Maurice Green, it is.
Because there's a hook and
yeah.
It looks very relaxing. I've never tried it, but
it's a great story, and he's a great character. He fights Alexei Oleinik.
He's a big guy too.
On the main card.
Next to Alexei, giant.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, let's talk about the two main stars, the main eventers. Donald Cerrone showed up in style. What happened?
Yeah, on a Harley with his team. Apparently, he lost one of his teammates on the highway coming to the UFC Apex for Media Day. I'm not sure what happened to that guy. Hopefully, he's okay. But
keep up with Donald, I bet. On a mountain bike, on a wakeboard. I'm sure it's not the first time he's lost a teammate doing an activity.
It's interesting because like McGregor has been kind of a different type of guy this week, but this is the same old Cowboy Cerrone. He's showing up on a Harley. He's doing cowboy things. He's got his RV in the UFC PI parking lot. He's not actually staying there, but yeah, I mean he's the cowboy of old.
Anything stick out for you as far as Donald is concerned?
You know, I loved the way Donald ended the press conference because he's so loose. I mean, I said this, you know, yesterday, and I saw it again today. The guy is just so loose to the point that I'm not worried about him. I'm not thinking that he's not going to go out there and take it seriously, but this is a big fight for him. You know, I want to see the fire out of him a little bit. And he ended the press conference saying, thank you all for coming. We're going to blow the roof off. Cowboys showing up for the big fight.
Yeah.
And I think he is kind of taking that a little bit to heart. I've heard him mention that now a couple times. Like, hey, Cowboy doesn't show up for the big fight. He said it definitively today. I'm showing up for the big fight. I like that. I like the way he ended it.
Also of note, he said he woke up today at 174, so this weight cut is a breeze. And someone asked him if he too, like Conor McGregor, was sober leading up to this fight. He said, absolutely not. Nice moment for Donald Cerrone. Let me quickly ask you about Conor McGregor. Very short scrum, but he did show up 30 minutes late, not like yesterday, 20 minutes early, but he did show up for around 10 or so minutes. He mentioned Manny Pacquiao. He was asked about Pacquiao. He didn't bring him up on his own. Anything in particular about Conor, who at this point has kind of answered a lot of the same questions?
Yeah, I mean, 30 minutes for Conor McGregor being late is actually early. I actually thought it would be much later. But yeah, the Pacquiao stuff. He said he wanted to. It would be an honor for him to headline the first combat sports fight at the new Allegiant Stadium that the Raiders are going to play in next season here in Las Vegas. He mentioned possibly fighting Mayweather again this year. He said he floated that. He said that the Pacquiao talks are ongoing. So it's just more of the future. I mean, I feel like a lot of the questions are not about Donald Cerrone. They're more about the future with McGregor, which is, I mean, it could go either way on Saturday.
Which I think is a good thing. You know, I've had people come up to me and say, you know, that's one of the most tired storylines in combat sports, right? It's something that we always ask ourselves. If one fighter is talking about what's next, they always say, is he distracted? Is he focused on the best McGregor is always the one who's planning. It's always the one who's plotting. It's the one who wants the biggest pieces of the pie, whose eyes are big, who's talking about Jose Aldo when he's just coming into the UFC. That is the best version of McGregor. So to hear him talk about all these things he wants to accomplish, because that's a question I asked him myself, actually, as John Kavanagh in the Countdown show said, you know, what's going to motivate this guy? Well, what's going to motivate him is finding the best version of himself. And that's a great quote, but I also think Conor McGregor is the type of guy who needs concrete things to go after. He needs that welterweight championship. He needs a boxing title in his mind, you know, and to hear him talk about all these things, I think it's a good sign. I think it's a good sign of things to come this year.
All right, guys, great stuff. The Bellagio fountains are popping off to our right, so I think that's a sign that we need to wrap this bad boy up. Day 2 in the books. Friday, of course, the big one, the weigh-ins. They have to step on the scale 9 to 11 a.m. Pacific time, 12 to 2 p.m. Eastern time. Then, if everyone makes weight, we'll be officially good to go for Saturday night. We'll be back on Friday night to wrap up what hopefully is an uneventful day. Everyone makes weight, and then we shall be set for the highly anticipated UFC 246 card. All right, we're out of time. For Marc, Brett, I'm Ariel. Thank you again for watching. We'll see you on Friday night.